area? Oh, Arun. Okay, hey Arun. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else?
So let me do a quick introduction for Ramu, and I guess everybody knows about Dr. Ramu's work, and also recently I think a lot of most of the people would have also watched this Satyameva Jayate show on pesticides and so on, and and many of us have been following the agrarian crisis website, and also the work, the advocacy work that we have been doing as part of in AP as well as as part of the National Alliance called ASHA. So I won't spend time introducing Ramu, but Ramu, basically this is all people from the agriculture group within AID, and many of them have been following agriculture issues for quite some time, and they are organizing awareness events in the US and also visiting many of the work that is going on in India when they visit India. And some of them are also very closely, involved in some of the campaigns. It could be about the GM, it could be, on ecological agriculture or against pesticides and all these things. And also, and basically we want this to be a learning forum, as well as, people can be actively involved also in helping out in any of the advocacy work or study, doing some studies and so on. And many of the aid partners that are there in various states in India, these many of these volunteers are basically interfacing with them on the work that they are doing. So that's the nature of the group that is there, and many of them are also involved in locally in work that is going on in the US, like they're part of community supported agriculture farms in the US, or they are basically exploring buying things from the farmers market rather than from the supermarket, and directly linking up with different sources of food that are there in the US and so on. So that's basically the nature of the group. And Govind will conduct the call. So he will start off by asking you 2 or 3 questions, and then from there we can see what are the other questions that come up in the discussion. Govind, you go ahead.
So, hello, Dr. Ramu. So I have about a list of 12 questions that different people have sent us. So like Kiran said, I'll start with the first couple of questions, and then we will see, see if there are any follow-up questions to that. We will take that up. If not, we'll go through the rest of the questions. So the first question is, so can we find out about the status of the GM issue in the light of the parliamentary committee report? Will the government agree to stop the trials? Or do we need to campaign on this? So that's the first question.
I don't think government will agree on this, on the Parliamentary Standing Committee report itself, because there are many, earlier there were several such reports on several other issues also. It is not mandatory on the government to accept that. So I think an active campaign to solve the field trials is very important. In Andhra Pradesh, for example, there are field trials going on. But I think government has not yet taken notice of the standing committee report also. I think there's some, we need to build pressure on the government. And particularly now the Supreme Court committee report also is going to come up, which also probably is going to say the similar things. So I think campaign should be stepped up.
Okay. So along those lines, so the next question is, so when we met volunteers at the National Institute of Health, they were suggesting that some scientists could be tapped to comment on these issues, something like the Union of Concerned Scientists, but focused on the current concerns in India. What groups are playing this role in India, and do you have any ideas of how aid volunteers, especially scientists, could take up this work? So one of the things we are trying to do here is, so if you want to take up an issue, or if you want to conduct a campaign, is there something we can, or what is the best way for, in your opinion, that we in aid can actually help you with this, or we can conduct the campaign? So those are some of the things. If you can share with us, it will be helpful to us.
Okay. See, in the next 2 months. Next 2 months, this August and then September, mid-October kind of thing, In India, there is going to be a lot of discussion about the biodiversity. There's a conference on biodiversity happening in India, particularly Hyderabad. It is going to happen. So around that, we are trying to do several events where this issue is going to be brought up. In India, one of the problems is there is no organized scientific community which is worried about this issue. Unlike the Union of Concerned Scientists, there is no organized community as such here. The only thing, institute bodies like that available are the science academies, and all these science academies are sold off. You have seen their report last time when they brought out a report. So too much depending on as an organized community will be difficult, but certainly we will have individuals who are vocal and then who have the concern kind of thing. But getting them onto a platform is also not so easy in India because there are a lot of pressure from the system. So that's the issue, particularly the scientific community. So taking things would be better if we can build a consensus. If not consensus, at least a campaign, bringing out these issues clearly to media and with politicians. I think that would be the better.
So
while keeping up scientific, so at the same time keeping up scientific rigor in our campaign. So rather than being very rhetoric in the campaign, be scientific, but take it up with politicians and media. I think that would help a lot.
Okay. So along those lines, is there something we can do to help with this campaign? So I know you talked about media and politicians, right? So is there something we volunteers from AID, given that most of us have science background or some sort of scientific qualification, is there something? What is it that we can do from our end?
Some more. See, what happens is, even if you look at the Parliamentary Standing Committee report, many parts of it are also very rhetoric. So, basically, what we need to look at is come up with a small brief on this report, picking up the major issues and then very scientifically, technically analyzing that. Leaving aside the rhetoric arguments, because there are rhetoric arguments also, because obviously this is written by a political group as well as who obviously it's the campaign. They are also into the same campaign. So obviously their own ideologies also impact report. So if we can take out those things, because you may not need 100 points to actually counter the issue. You actually need 4 or 5 which are very strong. So I think those things we need to bring out and then compile them, and then that material will be very useful. So more scientific analysis and then putting in more scientific reports which are already available elsewhere, published reports kind of thing, saying, this is the issue which we need to sort out. I think that will put a spoke in the wheel, right? Otherwise it will be difficult to say this is a very rhetoric one.
Sure.
So I think your team can play an important role in that line.
Yeah. That's something we can take up as maybe in the future project work also. So my next question is, what is the extent of pesticide?
This is Kiran. See, I just wanted to also add that in people like Sridevi, right, from AID, who then moved to India and is now, I think, Netherlands. Somebody like her who is not, necessarily from a biotech background and so on, or agriculture background academically, also has done excellent work in terms of following up on this report, studying them, and pointing out the flaws in them, and making, drafting what should be our response to them, and so on. So I think some other volunteers also can step up to do those kind of things.
Sure. Yeah, I think that should be part of the focus of it. Sorry.
Hello. Yeah.
Dr. Ramu, you were saying something.
Well, I was saying while general analysis and focus would be useful always, in addition, a very scientifically focused analysis will help. So I think both should go together.
Okay. Yeah.
Otherwise, it will be always be dismissing. People will dismiss it as rhetoric. I think that we should overcome now.
Right. Yeah. So my next question is, what is the extent of pesticide usage in India? Has the usage been increasing the past 10 years? Are there any signs of turning the tide?
Yeah, if you look at it, the national average pesticide use is increasing. It is not decreasing. And but there is a variation between states. And if you take the last 20 years, certainly there is a decrease. But if you take last 10 years, there is an increase. The difference is actually 10 years, about 10 years back, low volume pesticides are introduced. Low volume in the sense, earlier what people used to use, say 2 liters per acre. Now the newer pesticides, you only need to use 200 grams kind of thing. So apparently the volume looks like it is reduced if you take the 20 years span. But if you take the last 10 years span after the low volume pesticides are coming, they've increased across the country, but Andhra Pradesh has shown a significant reduction. Andhra Pradesh has shown a very significant reduction. Yeah.
Is there a reason why you saw this decrease in Andhra Pradesh?
Andhra Pradesh, two reasons I would say. One is a large campaign built after 2005 on the pesticides. A large campaign. So, the Rural Development Department of Andhra Pradesh also stepped into the campaign. So, one reason that people believe that pesticides may not be needed as much. So, that kind of confidence was created. And alternatives in the form of non-pesticidal management and all are established on a fairly large scale. I see these two as the main reasons for reduction in the pesticide use. There is a clear national data shows only Andhra Pradesh has recorded pesticide use reduction.
So basically, if you're able to reach out to some of the policy makers, then that seems to have the biggest impact. So would that be a good way of?
I think while we need to also establish alternatives on a fairly large scale and create confidence in the people, that also creates confidence on the policy makers also, because many of the policy makers are also looking for options. But the problem is they don't come across such things. That's the issue.
So the next question is kind of a follow-up. What has been the response after the Satyameva Jayate show? Apart from reactions from consumers, have you received more response from the farmers to take up non-pesticidal agriculture?
Yeah, I think the larger response was from farmers themselves. In fact, the last Sunday when the follow-up show happened on Satyameva Jayate, there also Amir Khan was also mentioning this is the show where he got a lot of response from the rural areas. So he actually had set up he collected all the phone numbers of the resource persons who are working on these areas statewide, and he has sent it to all India radio stations and all those offices and his own office to respond to the people's calls. So he is getting so many calls. That's what he says. And we have so many calls. In fact, per day on average, some 30 to 40 calls we are getting even today from farmers across the country. Farmers. I think that's this we are seeing for the last 7-8 years. Wherever farmers come across a solution for pesticides, there is a good response. In fact, I see the shift to BT cotton also for the same reason. Farmers are fed up with pesticides and they are looking for options. I think that we need to build on.
Sure.
Yeah, there is a response.
So next question is on the usage of chemical fertilizers. The usage of chemical fertilizers is also a big problem. As an agriculture scientist, what is your view on this usage of fertilizers? How is it impacting the farmers and farm ecology?
See, on fertilizers, the impact is on the soil and the environment, not so much on the food we eat. Not so much. There is a little bit, but not as much as the pesticide use. Okay.
Okay.
So chemical fertilizers are quick way of supplying nutrients. So it's like saline. You get an immediate nutrient kind of thing. But the problem today we are facing is because of the excessive use of chemical fertilizers, soils are getting spoiled. The overall soil fertility is reduced because supplementing with the soil, the chemical fertilizers, kind of organic matter application was not happening.
Right.
That's one thing. Second thing is the availability of chemical fertilizers itself is going down. I think that's something which is not acknowledged by the government. For 2-3 reasons. One, the phosphorus and potassium reserves across the world are coming down. So probably economically we can exploit for another 25, not more than that. So what do you do after that is a big question in front of us. Second is whenever dollar prices goes up or whenever petroleum prices goes up, your fertilizer cost is going up. And government is just washed off its hands saying subsidies are increasing, so it is withdrawing from providing subsidies on chemical fertilizers, and that is increasing the costs of fertilizers heavily. In the last 1 year, it went up by 100%. 500 rupees bag of DAP today costs about 1,200 rupees. So farmers are now feeling, say, in 2004 when I was talking to the farmers about fertilizers, they didn't feel the pinch of fertilizers. They said, okay, it only costs about 500 rupees, 200 rupees. If you go organic, it costs us a lot. We need to do a lot of manual work kind of thing. But today people feel the fertilizers are not available, and then all those problems they are able to feel. So I think that front, from the farmer side, there is a realization about the problem with fertilizers, both in terms of access to fertilizers and also in terms of using the fertilizers and then the soil getting depleted. These two farmers, there is an acknowledgement. But from the government side, very recently, actually, government started realizing that it can no more subsidize chemical fertilizers to the extent it was doing till now. But the problem is they are not investing on doing a campaign for asking the farmers to reduce the fertilizer use. Say in the next, they should have a clear target saying, say next 10 years, next 5 years, we'll reduce the fertilizer use by X%. They can always do that. But so that kind of policy government brings in, that could be easier, and then the process could be gradually shifting towards. See, unlike pesticides, unless you completely stop, your crop ecology don't restore, and then you cannot see the immediate results. But fertilizer, slowly you can phase out, and then in the meantime you can also build your resources which you need. Because you need a lot of resources also, alternative resources. That also can be built up. So 8 to 3 years plan if you have, I think it's easy to shift.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So the next question is, considering the government's enormous support to chemical agriculture through Green Revolution and afterwards, do we see any moves from the government to change its approach and promote sustainable agriculture? Are there new opportunities now which were not there 10 years back? So if so, how best can we use them?
Yeah, there are 2-3 opportunities. In fact, after the Andhra Pradesh experience on the community managed sustainable agriculture program, Government of India came up with a large program called Mahila Krishi Sasaktikaran Pariyojana, MKSP it is called. So that entire program is focused to help women farmers across the country to move towards sustainable agriculture. So the entire support is training the farmers to make a shift. No support for any inputs, because till now the entire inputs are entire support from the government is only to the externally bought inputs. So if you buy fertilizer, you get a subsidy. If you buy a seed from outside, you get a subsidy. You don't get any support if you produce your own and use it. So this program actually puts in resources to support farmers to make a shift. So it's all capacity building kind of thing. So the knowledge part is supported in this entire program, and that program has taken roots across the country in the last 1.5 years or so. And in the next 5 years, I think that is one bigger opportunity we all have to take it forward. And second is some state governments also are getting interested. For example, Madhya Pradesh government is planning to launch from the September onwards. From the next Rabi onwards, a similar kind of program in 2 districts, and probably once we see a success, it can be extended. And several state governments came up with organic farming policies, but unfortunately, see, getting a policy paper is much easier. Actually, how do you operationalize that policy paper at the field level is a big question. So working on that line will be very useful. And then one more major problem which we see is the lack of trained human resources. So government will put in money, but who is there to take it forward? So because all the people now available are trained in the mainstream agricultural systems. So either they don't understand it or they don't have willingness to do that. So that's another major issue which we are all faced with. So if these three can be addressed, there will be a major shift.
Okay. So is there a role for aid in any of these programs? I mean, is there something we can do to help speed up them or spread them to more areas?
Yeah, on 2-3 things. One is at the field level, if you take, we started a resource center in Kurnool with support from aid, and then now it is showing very good results. So few such models across the country is something which we can think of. At various locations, if we can show in high input conditions, very dry conditions, very tribal conditions, if 2-3 examples can be there, based on that we can build up with the government how this can be taken forward. That's something which is possible. Second is actually probably coming up with a kind of a newer system. Basically, see, in all these, the major expenses is on the transaction cost, right? Because people going there and then training kind of thing. Because already there is a limited human resources, so going there and training and all is costing a lot. So can we think of some ID-based platform to cut short? I think that if some of you who have experience in these areas can step in, we can build a kind of IT-based platform which can help the local people to learn. Yeah, I think that will be a path-breaking initiative if we can do that. So you may not need a big, very senior expert to go to the field and do it, but you can have the local person do it if he has access to everything, all the material.
Okay.
So that kind of thing is something which is needed.
Okay. Yeah. So, there's actually some good ideas. So maybe we should follow up on them. So the next question.
Video-based resources. I think some video-based resources. I think will be very helpful.
Yeah.
Very useful. Yeah. I think a video-based resources, small videos, and then different languages, because now almost everybody has a mobile phone. So if you can link it up in such a way that it can get into the mobile phones of the people, either audio or video, that will be very helpful. You can break all the language barriers, literature barriers, and we can get into the people's hands. I think that's something which we should think of. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think language is that big an issue because we can always find people to dub over some of these things. So in the sense that we can know whoever speaks in the main language, right?
So centrally we can dub up.
Right. So I think what we can do maybe...
Because we have this... See, problem is either we have resource persons who can speak Hindi or we have people who can speak Hindi, but if other language people want it, there's a barrier. If you take the person, but if you can dub and then make the resources available, it will be very useful. Yeah. So I think that's something we should think of.
Yeah. And I think the main thing maybe we should think of going forward, Kiran, is maybe we can start looking at specific projects where, different areas or something like that. Maybe that's something we can discuss after the call, maybe next week. Okay. So these are some very good ideas. Yeah. So the next question is
just one thing which I had brought up, during my recent visit also, in the conference and so on, is that I think some IT support kind of thing from 2 or 3 volunteers who will just focus on that, who have the skills necessary in using any of the CMS platforms and so on, to build some of these IT things which will make it accessible across the across the country, and also which will make it easy for somebody to easily look and find what they want. kind of a thing. I think it will be good. So there is Ramu and others are working on building this website called takingroots.in, where all this information on ecological agriculture can be. And Krishi Media.
No, we started one on at the Krishi TV. Yeah, Krishi TV. Krishi TV, which actually provides such platform. We are just trying to build it, but more people chipping in will be much useful.
Okay.
Hello? Yeah.
So somebody who is interested on this.
What we are trying out, and then people can suggest.
Yeah. So, so Kiran, you were saying something.
No, that's what. So I'm just saying that some of the volunteers who have those kind of skills could also join in directly helping, in some of these initiatives like Taking Roots or Krishi Media.
Yep.
Then that will help in, I think, taking it wider, just using the technical skills and so on.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. So this is something that we will follow up, and I think we should definitely follow up as part of the Agri Cell. Yeah. So the next question is there any study of nutritional density and caloric density of food conducted over a period on Indian traditional and Indian modern farms to compare the effects of industrial and traditional methods?
Yeah, there is a recent study by ICR, Indian Council of Agricultural Research itself, which says actually in areas like Rangareddy district and all where the study is across the country, which says actually the soils which are deficient in iron, in that areas iron deficiency in people is very high. Iron, zinc, on such minerals they did a study. So wherever, particularly in the Rangareddy district, wherever the iron deficiency in soils is high, they clearly show that the iron deficiency in women is very, very high. So that study has come up very recently. There is a of agricultural research on that. I couldn't lay my hands on the full study, but the papers, part of the papers are all available.
Sure.
So
now, what about trends?
Fact.
Okay, right. But what about the trends themselves? Like, what about the trends? Let's suppose that you grow on the same soil using, say, in chemical farming, right? So is there a decrease in?
It shows an increase.
Okay.
Increase. It shows an increase.
So it
shows an increase compared to previous years. Few micronutrients.
Okay.
Particularly zinc, iron, and all. Yeah.
Okay.
Zinc and iron, it clearly shows that there is a decrease.
Okay.
So Ramu, I think
so
one of the things Govind is asking is also, is there a difference, between the intensive chemical farming and more sustainable farming in terms of the nutrient thing, in terms of the food nutrition?
No, that's what I'm saying. Say, in areas where there's an intensive chemicalization of agriculture, more micronutrient deficiencies are seen both in soils as well as in the food. And that reflects in the health of the people also. So a connection between these three is established. Yeah. And also, levels of heavy metals are also seen. Because wherever chemical fertilizers are used, heavy metals are also seen. So these are established.
Sure. What about the caloric density? So the amount of calories in the food. Is there a variation from one to the other?
Not much. No, that largely is influenced not by chemicalization but by the kind of food.
Right. Okay.
Kind of food. Say in the shift from millets to rice, so those kind of things. It's not so much to do with chemicalization.
Right. No, but actually, so if there is no change in caloric content, so that contributes to obesity.
So not much studies have been. I'm not saying that it is not there, but I am saying that not much studies are there on that. But my understanding is that much of it is to do with shift in food habits rather than shift in production practices.
Sure. Right. So the next question is there a plan to collect and preserve traditional seed varieties either at a local government level or at a state or central level?
See, government and understanding of saving and collecting and saving seed is to put it into cold storage. Not so much about saving in the field. So not so much.
Right.
And independent initiatives about saving and then using seeds independently, not so much from the government side. But what I see is both are important. In the sense, in situ conservation is important, but in situ conservation cannot be done by every farmer because every land may not yield so much for the farmers, and also every variety may not have a good market also. So it should be a public investment which should go into that. Second is we just began an initiative discussing about open source seed model where there will be different sets of open source seeds online with the open source software kind of thing, where there is a group of people who are interested about doing it and then keep sharing with others, and then as a network we build support for such things. And so, and also keep it as open as possible, because rights to anyone, either it's a farmer or a breeder, is an exclusive rights which are not granted by the law. So we are saying it should be open, more open than being restricted. So that's something which we are trying out. In fact, on 27-28, we are having a meeting in Hyderabad with several people who are working on this. Kiran is also part of that.
Sure. There is actually an initiative like that in the US. I think it's called seedsharing.org or one of those things. So it's actually an internet-based site where you can go and buy native seeds, heirloom seeds for different grain or different. I'm sure you must have heard of that. So,
Here also we have. Tell me.
Sure. Okay. So the next question is, what is the status of cattle breeding programs that were started a long time back, 20, 30 years back, by the state and central governments? Are they still going on, or what is the?
Yeah, it is going on. See, one of the problem is when they started this cattle breeding program, cross breeding program, whatever they could actually analyze and then develop descriptors. Only 5 or 6 Indian breeds they could actually list out. All others are seen as non-descriptive varieties, and then they're all shunned. There's no focus on those things. And even in what they actually identified as in good Indian breeds, no improvement program was done. So what happened was, say, breeds like Ongol in India, Ongol from Andhra Pradesh, there is no focus. And then today, if you look at the entire Ongol breed in Andhra Pradesh, is also contaminated. They are contaminated with Jersey or Hyderabad. It is actually contaminated crossbred. So the problem is today, if we want, we need to get it imported from Brazil. So even that's the same case with the Welshurk or with other kind of breeds also. So in India, as such, there is no much focus on the traditional breeds to improvise them. This year, actually, some discussion began. Because the CBD is happening and all, they're trying to discuss on that. And I mean, Hyderabad, they're setting up a big exhibition, a permanent big exhibition on Indian biodiversity. So they're setting it up. But the problem is, unless government realizes that the Indian breeds are also important and then they can adapt better to the environment kind of thing, it will not be a good thing. So same thing like what is happening with the agriculture crop. It is happening with animal breeds also. For example, take the poultry. The entire poultry is shifting towards a caged poultry, and then it's only the foreign breeds which are used. Whereas there are very good Indian breeds like Asil, are quite good, but no support, no promotion on that front.
Sure. So again, is there something here that these could actually help in?
Yeah, see the problem with on the other hand, the problem is wherever we are looking at, like say, Asil in poultry, it's quite a good one. So if you can build some backyard poultry models using them, I think that has a good market. But building the supply chain, building a station, building a breeding station, a multiplication station where all this happens, a small unit, and then helping farmers to set up their own poultry unit, and then linking it to the market. So this chain can be supported in one or two locations. Then it comes into the limelight. See, the problem today is we are all living with these haploid eggs which are grown with huge antibiotics and all. We all know the problem. But where do I get my regular traditional eggs?
Right.
So I think that kind of initiatives will help.
Sure. Yeah. It's good to know. Again, so these are all, I think, project models or project ideas that we can probably pursue this. So
basically, building supply chains for several of these things, even on seeds also. People are there. If we go back and then you start using the traditional seeds and all, one of the problem is they don't yield well, and they don't adapt, and then we don't know which one adapts to our condition better, and also there may not be a market preference. So if we can have a kind of participatory varietal selection where we can build the data on value for cultivation and use, how it is good for cultivation and how it is good for market. If that data can be generated for several varieties, and then make the seeds available. So if you can establish a supply chain system where it is multiplied and then supplied, then there will be big taking for those things.
Sure.
But that kind of initiatives should come. Yeah.
Sure.
So on seeds and breeds, I think there's the same kind of initiatives which we should begin.
Sure. Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is very good information actually for us. So next question is: are there attempts to educate students in schools? Yeah. Sorry. Yes, sir.
Yeah. You go ahead. Go ahead. Question. Yeah.
So, are there attempts to educate students in schools and colleges about chemical-free food?
Yeah. See, on a voluntary basis, we do in several schools, going and talking to them. Regularly at the state, in Andhra Pradesh we are doing it, in other states also some people are doing it. But one major initiative began, but unless it takes a very organized form, it will not result in anything. So in Madhya Pradesh, we could get actually Madhya Pradesh government to introduce agriculture, sustainable agriculture in the school syllabus. From 2nd class to 10th class, they changed the entire syllabus of all subjects. They introduced agriculture into that. So, for example, mathematics talks about how you can use mathematics in agriculture. Science talks about how you can use science in agriculture kind of thing. So that has a lot of information gone into the regular textbooks, not as an optional environmental science which is not counted for their marks and all, but it's a regular subject. So it is introduced into the regular subject, and it is made mandatory that at least for 2 years, the children will be trained to grow crops in the schools. So that is made mandatory now in Madhya Pradesh. So similar kind of things we are now discussing with other groups across the country. And one initiative which is going to begin now is Department of Science and Technology, Government of India has a program called Vigyan Prasar, which is the science education initiative. And they got interested in the whole thing, and we are organizing a workshop in November, wherein we have come up with a kind of modules which can be taken to schools and much larger society on agriculture, particularly talking about chemicals, GM and all these issues. And next year, 2020, will be used as a year for Krishi Jata across the country, where hundreds and thousands of meetings will be organized across the country on these. So I think that there you can pitch in a better way. So the campaign can be built, and then many of you, wherever you have access to the people, you can also bring in that. And can be done in a very effective way. Yeah.
Okay. That's good to hear that actually. I just have 2 more questions, but I just want to, I know we have several people on the call. I mean, I'm not sure, I mean, if you guys have any follow-up questions to any of these, so we have 2 options. So one is we can actually finish asking all these questions, but if you want to jump in and say, have a quick follow-up question, you can do that right away. So
yeah, Govind, let's see if other people have questions who have not already contributed to that list.
Right. Yeah. Anybody else has any questions or any follow-up questions to what Dr. Ram has already talked about? Okay. So then let me again go through the remaining questions. So the next question is, can entrepreneurs promoting organic food in urban centers pose a viable business model? How is entrepreneurship in general taken up as a strategy by groups like community-supported agriculture?
Yeah. See, here there are two things which we need to look at when we talk about urban entrepreneurs. One is, see, in India, one of the problems is that many farmers, see, the number of farmers is very high, right? So the kind of community initiatives in US may not be in a position to be replicated here. But here what we need to look at is how we can organize farmers in the form of a cooperative and then create space for them to get into the market is something which we should think of as an organized community of the farmers. Second is in urban areas, though there are several initiatives by individual entrepreneurs, the problem with all of them is everyone is trying to build their own brand. So they're trying to reinvent the wheels, everyone. So there is no organized way of doing it. So for a long time I was talking to all these people, and then whoever comes to me, I was saying, actually, see, build your enterprise brand. Why do you want to build a brand for the food? Which is a useless exercise, because if you want to build a brand for the food, both are different issues. No? If you want to build a brand for the food, then you need to establish a whole supply chain, which you can't do it. And then they're ending up actually, and then so they end up adding a lot of cost to the food. Say, for example, some people who buy from us, they add something like 30 to 40 rupees per every kg of paddy, rice which they sell in the market. So ultimately the whole exercise of bringing farmers and producers closer and then giving producers major share in the consumer price is defeated in that line.
Right.
So that's the problem. So some kind of a common brand building and then bringing several of these enterprises together may help actually.
Right. Okay.
One initiative we are thinking of is to have a common brand, and also the other problem is how do you extend credibility for the product? Because the moment you open the entrepreneur opens the packet which we supply, they open and they repack it so that they can put their price.
Right.
So obviously we cannot extend the guarantee to that also. So these issues are there, and then we were discussing with several people. And the people, one of the problem with all these is this can run only with a mutual trust.
Right.
And then some kind of arrangement where we should agree upon what would be the share of different players in the supply chain. And if everybody wants to make a quick buck in this thing, I think it will collapse. We were discussing with these people, and now to some extent there is some kind of understanding on this, and we started with a few other players also, few other entrepreneurs also on this. And this month, 25, 26, we are doing a farmers cooperative mela in Warangal, where several such entrepreneurs are called, so that they can take advice on the farmer cooperatives and we enter into a deal kind of thing. So such initiatives may help actually. And second thing is, I think if this has to take on to a larger scale and address the problem of large number of farmers. See, all these are smaller initiatives. If it has to be a larger initiative where many farmers get benefit out of it and then many entrepreneurs can come into the picture, we should have a very well-organized supply chain. Well-organized supply chain, I think that's something which is important. Yeah, so I think that's the next major thing we should work on. Several groups coming together and working on a supply chain. I think that will help a lot. Because this entrepreneur, see, the problem now is the moment the entrepreneur tries to reach out to the consumer, the farmers directly, then they are stepping down the supply chain. They are stepping down the supply chain, so they take away the share. And if farmer has to move up the supply chain and reach out to the consumer directly, it is very costing for them. So we need to find a mechanism of a different mechanism which can help both. I think that's something which is something we should do. And we tried with the consumer cooperative, but it didn't go well. Mainly because I think unlike on the campaigns, putting time on marketing is not so much possible for the people and all. So we are thinking of different models on these things. Yeah, some initiatives have begun on that, and then we recently had a workshop on marketing also to discuss several learnings on these things.
Sure. Yeah. Have you actually looked at some of the models that are present in the U.S. and see if they can be adapted to India? The reason why I'm saying it is actually recently, at least in the past 4 or 5 years, this community-supported agriculture has actually become a big deal in the U.S. And a lot of different communities are participating in that. Okay.
No. In fact, we began our marketing initiative with that only, as CSA, community-supported agriculture. Way back in 2007-8. That was the first initiative which we began. But as I told you, adapting it to our conditions was not that easy. So on the top of, and then in India also there are several such initiatives also. On the top of that, then we tried with consumer cooperatives. But these are all helping only small numbers of people. See, if I had to help a village, it works. A village or say 10-15 farmers, it helps. As the production increases, and the more number of people comes into it, we need a more organized system. A very organized system is so that's something which is important.
Sure. Okay. My final question is what? So are there are there courses offered in the graduate and undergraduate programs in agriculture on sustainable farming? So are there experts being developed?
Yes. One initiative we just began is to discuss with several groups on this front, and there are some colleges which are doing other courses on agriculture, so we are discussing with them, and with the Open University also we are discussing. Probably something may come up in the next 1 year or so. So we are trying out on that line, because that's something which is important. So building human resources who can work on this, even building rural businesses, no? See, a rural entrepreneur comes up to set up a supply chain where he procures and then supplies, even to that, to provide training and then support to them, there is no initiative. So all these rural management institutes, they actually try and help industry to get into the rural markets rather than rural markets getting into the urban areas. So, so there is no initiative on that line at all. So I think that's something which is very essential.
Right.
Very essential.
Right. So actually, those are all the questions that were sent to us before the call. Actually, I've been monopolizing this call and the question and answer session for so long. I'm sure some of you have other questions also. So, Dr. Ramu, how much more time do you have?
Yeah, we can go on.
Okay. So, in case if you have any questions, any more questions or any suggestions or something, so you guys can go ahead. Otherwise, I think maybe we can have Dr. Ramu talk about maybe what he has already given us a lot of suggestions. Maybe is there something else he wants us to think about, or is something we can do to help him and his work. So maybe we can let Dr. Ramu talk about that a little more. Kiran, what do you think? I mean, is there something else you want? No, you're more familiar with his work.
I think let's see if others have any questions.
Yeah, sure. So, in case you didn't see the email, Dr. Ramu is the person behind the website, the Indian Agrarian Crisis .in. So that's so if some of you have been to the website and looked at a lot of the material. So if you have any questions, he'd probably be the best person to. Hello?
Hello.
No, yeah. I think everybody's put their phones on mute or something.
No, this is Somnath. Dr. Ramu, I was, had a general question that in terms of the agricultural policies, can you point out like the inflection or the point where the agricultural policies of Government of India changed drastically in this liberalization phase?
Yeah, see, as such, India never had any agriculture policy at all. Okay, the policies are all specific policies like seed policy, export-import policy, those kind of things. And the major shift happened around the 90s, where public sector support to agriculture started coming down, and then more and more space was created for the private sector. Mm-hmm. I think that's where the major shift has begun. And when they have taken that shift, we have not adopted the kind of support systems which were available in the other countries where private sector plays a major role. Like, for example, the kind of regulatory systems available, the kind of accountability systems available, the kind of subsidy support systems available, financial support systems. Those things were never taken into account, but they just made a shift towards privatizing many of the services which government is providing. On the other hand, at the same time, because of the economic reforms which have begun, they also taken a stand to reduce government support to agriculture. Because if you look at across the world, when the public sector started withdrawing, and then private sector started playing a major role, government support to farmers also started increasing. The subsidies to farmers started increasing, and accountability systems also started increasing. But in India, the reverse has happened. So, say for example, in the seed sector, public sector started withdrawing, private sector was given major role, but the government support to farmers on seeds started withdrawing. The same thing happened with the fertilizers. Same thing happened with markets. Government procurement started reducing, and there is no regulation on the market prices for farmers by the companies, and government started withdrawing from that. So farmers are squeezed in after the 90s in this line, in this process basically.
See, the thing is, I think to take an example like this, Kiran, so Ramu, can I just jump in for a couple of minutes? So in the seed thing, right, that Ramu was talking about, earlier all the seeds used to be supplied by the state seed development corporations and so on. And so they used to be available at very little cost to the farmers. And also the state had the responsibility for ensuring sufficient quantities of seeds being available and so on, depending on the cropping pattern and all that. So they actually took that responsibility, and they were delivering in quite a decent manner. There used to be some shortages occasionally, but they used to deliver, and there used to be the pressure from the public that if at the beginning of the season the seeds are not available, there used to be a lot of pressure for the seed development corporation to make it available. But when they withdrew and basically started just allowing only the private companies to sell the seeds, one thing is that the prices went up significantly, and the quality of the seeds actually, normally the argument in the liberalization thing is that, when the private sector comes in, then the quality is going to go up, there's going to be competition and, better supply and so on, right? But actually the quality norms were reduced. Like earlier when, 85-90% germination rate was the minimum which the seed corporation used to supply. Now even with 60% germination rate, the companies are selling it. And the prices to the farmers are going up, and the companies are actually determining what varieties of seed or what which hybrids to promote, which hybrids to sell, and so on, based on their profit margins and their bottom line, and what kind of royalty agreements that they have. Let's say in the case of cotton, if they have royalty agreements to sell BT cotton, then it's in their interest actually to sell more BT cotton seeds than non-BT cotton, because they have to kind of pay off those some flat payments that they make to the micro company or something for licensing. And so it is better for them if they sell more BT cotton than non-BT cotton, so they'll just completely stop the non-BT cotton. So many such practices have happened by the seed companies, which basically there's been no regulation or anything over it. So the seed sector after privatization has actually become, it's become more expensive for the farmers to buy seeds, and a lot of times even if they want certain varieties of seeds, they are not available. And only the hybrids are available, where the seed companies can, where the farmers need to keep going back to the seed companies and buying seed rather than being able to preserve their own seeds and use them next year and so on. So all these kind of things, I think that is one good example for what has happened in the liberalization framework. And other things also with respect to the kind of subsidies that are given to farmers, or the amount of credit that is available to farmers. So many banks have are required to provide 18% of their credit to farmers, but a lot of that is now going to agri-businesses rather than to farmers.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Kiran.
So I think there is a dichotomy here that some people say that, and this has been there since the late 90s, that some of the farmer leaders, especially the big farmer organizations, basically say that if it is more liberalized and all controls are removed, and we go into a complete market-based model, including export and so on, then the farmers will start getting the best deal. But that actually has also been tried in a halfway kind of manner. But in fact, it's been found that after the quantitative restrictions were removed and all that, farmers have started seeing many more problems. But still there are people who are still advocating that you have to liberalize the agriculture thing completely and leave it to the market, and that is when the farmers will profit. But there's this other stream of thinking that actually in agriculture is a sector where the government presence and in terms of both support systems and regulation and all that is very strongly required. And that is when actually farmers will get a better deal, and that has been the experience in many of the countries, whether they are industrialized countries like US and Europe and so on, or even semi-industrialized like Thailand, or even countries like South Korea and all that. As they were becoming industrialized, the kind of policies that they followed actually had a lot of heavy state support to agriculture. So this is the second stream of thought. I think there is a big clash between between these two ideas, and the current government thinking in terms of the people who are controlling the macro policies, right, like Manmohan Singh, Montek Singh Ahluwalia, and people like that. They are in favor of saying that government completely withdraws from the agriculture sector and leave it to the market, and that is what is and in that process, if 80% of the farmers need to move out of agriculture, so but I think we are fighting for the alternative route, where there is a strong agriculture support by the government, and there can be, there is role for private companies and so on, but the majority of the the support system has to come from the government, and based on that, the farmers can actually prosper, including the small and marginal farmers.
So Kiran and Dr. Ramu, so maybe this will be a good question to think of, and we don't probably need the answer right away. But so do we have an alternate agriculture policy? I mean, develop not just on specific issues, but overall policy.
Yeah, one initiative we began, in fact, in 2009, I and Kiran were trying out to come up with a farmers manifesto kind of thing during the elections of 2009. But since we began late, we couldn't have a big takers, but few points from that were taken by the parties. Now, after that, in 2010, we came up with this Kisan Swaraj policy kind of thing, which is the initial draft, which needs to be fleshed in. And we are very hopeful that by, say, in the next couple of months, or probably by next 6 months or so, we'll come up with a final draft kind of thing on this. How a national agriculture policy should look like with farmer as a farmer-centric agriculture policy. I think that's something which is which we need to think of. So there are some initiatives began on that line.
Right. Also, have you looked at traditional Indian farming policies? I'm saying like pre-British or maybe in the beginning years of the British. Some of the how was agricultural policy conducted? So do you have any of that information, and are you able to incorporate that into your policies?
Yeah, see, traditionally, India, if you look back before 1700, land is all in the hands of the government. In fact, private ownership of land began only in after permanent settlement. Before that, it was not in the hands of the people at all. So at the time, whoever wanted to do it, they were trying to do, and in fact, the Jamindari system is what has begun the whole crisis. That land gets into the hands of few people kind of thing. And if you look at the support from the government to the farmers, if you look at, largely it was on the irrigation kind. There are a lot of traditional irrigation structures built to support irrigation to the farmers across the country. In fact, around Hyderabad, there used to be about 900 small tanks, but today everything is gone out. So those are a few things which we can see from the traditional kind of thing. But there are two, three good documents which talked about how agriculture was earlier. One is from Tamil Nadu. There is a very nice report. In fact, I have put it on the Agrarian Crisis website also. How in 1870s the yields of paddy were there in Tamil Nadu. And the data shows that the data from about 2,000 acres clearly shows that their yields were much higher than what is it today. It's called Tirupur and Vadakkupattu report. And similarly, there was a report on cotton. There was a report on cotton, growth of cotton. It is called Growth of Cotton. In 1840, there was a commission appointed by British to look into the cotton cultivation in India. And if you look at the entire supply chain of cotton at those was far better than what it exists today. So they're yielding better, farmers were getting better share, weavers were getting better share. So all that was there. So in a way, in a mad rush to westernize, because there is somehow we have a feeling that the model growth development means just doing what West is doing, because West is doing what it needs, no? Based on its conditions. So in a mad rush towards that is what has created the whole problem in agriculture, because many things can be adapted but not in agriculture, because agriculture is very
region, geography specific,
and socio-economic specific, exactly. So linking those changes into the existing policies, if we can come up, so borrow some things which are good from the West, and also borrow some things which are good locally, and then come up with a newer policy. I think that's something which is useful. This is what I think. Because there are some good reports traditionally which show that.
That's it's a very interesting thing to hear also. Anybody else has anything to add? Somebody else was trying to speak.
Kiran from Charlotte. This is Kiran. I had this question about the NREGA program. How is it affecting the farm labor? Because there is this perception that most of the labor is going away from farming, and due to this NREGA moving away from farming. If that is true, are there any initiatives to bring them back into the system again?
one of the issue is the total support which is provided by NREGA to agriculture workers. If you see, it's maximum about 35 to 42 days, I think. That's what is the average. So in a year, for the sake of getting an employment at 100 rupees for 42 days, I don't think the agriculture workers will spoil their entire remaining opportunity which they have in agriculture. That's not the case. The problem is, agriculture is becoming more and more unviable. Farmers are not in a position to afford labor even at 200 rupees or so. But if you look from the agriculture workers' point of view, unless they get 200 to 250 rupees a day, they cannot make a living even. Even the worst living which they are having today, even they cannot do it unless they get 200 rupees. And if the farmers pay 200 rupees, it's not viable for the farming. So that's the problem today. So I think we should have a mechanism of subsidizing agriculture for labor also. Today it's only subsidized for inputs. So subsidizing labor for agriculture may help a lot. I think that's something which is important. Second thing is, in fact, if you look at the macro numbers also, there's a lot of unemployment in the rural areas because they don't get enough wage employment. That's the reason why we are running a NREGA as an employment guarantee, and also the National Sample Survey numbers, and all these shows that there is no employment opportunities available in the organized sector at all, completely. So given that situation, running NREGA as such is important, but as it is increasing the bargaining power and the workers are getting a better prices, and affording that prices is not viable for the farmers, subsidizing farmers for getting these services done is something which is important. Second, I think organizing laborers into groups and also improvising their work efficiency is also important. Because today NREGA support is only for unskilled work. So there should be an effort to bring them into an organized sector where they can provide the labor services to the farmers in a more efficient way and get the better price for that. I think that's also something which is important, which is not done. Because government is happy providing this unskilled work and then at 100 rupees and then say we are doing great service kind of thing. But a new stream should begin where the labor can be organized, provide them with better skills. Say today a job which is done by 30 people, if it can be done by 10 people but can get the same share the price which is paid to the 30 people, I think it will be useful for the labor. I think that's something which is important. Hello?
Yeah.
Hello? Yeah. I think that's what I see as a way forward.
Any other questions?
I have one question. This is to Dr. Ram. So this is about, are there any local organization like something like cooperative societies which is having relations with especially the dairy farmers? Is there any society which is doing its work with especially the agriculture farmers? I mean the persons who are dealing with the plantation or the crops.
Yeah, there are many cooperatives like that. In fact, Andhra Pradesh is in one district. If you look at Karimnagar district, has probably the highest number of cooperatives in the country, and which are functional cooperatives. So there are many cooperatives like that, but just that government is always trying to take over. Whenever cooperative becomes successful, government tries to take over. I think that's something which is the problem. And even recently, Government of India has come up with a amendment to the Cooperative Act which says government can take over any cooperative anytime kind of thing. So that's the problem. Otherwise, cooperatives do exist and then doing well. And either government takes over or the politicians takes over. I think that's the problem. So some kind of engagement with these cooperatives to keep them away from the party politics, I think is important. So engaging them on this line also is important. So some discussions are happening with the people working with these cooperatives. across the country. Several initiatives have begun on those lines. Let's see how it can go forward. But certainly there are cooperatives. There are many cooperatives in the country which are functional.
So you were asking particularly about dairy cooperatives and farmers who are growing crops, is it?
Yeah, not particularly
dairy cooperatives also exist.
Yeah, I know dairy cooperatives because
dairy cooperatives also do exist. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean I
not
work
only
in
Gujarat,
the animal husbandry.
There are dairy cooperatives.
Yeah.
Okay. No, even on dairy cooperatives, there are some good dairy cooperatives happen. Say, for example, in Chittoor had the highest number of dairy cooperatives. But after the heritage came in, it systematically killed and then it took over many of the smaller cooperatives. It has killed the Chittoor cooperative, which is one of Balaji Milk Dairy Cooperative. I think that's one of the biggest and highly successful cooperative, which is now almost killed by heritage. So that kind of things are happening.
So is this the same heritage as in the Heritage Foundation?
No. Heritage is Chandrababu Naidu. Yeah.
Okay.
Heritage has taken over, and similarly the Vishaka Cooperative.
Oh, okay.
The Vishaka Cooperative, similarly the Vijaya Cooperative in Krishna district. They were all very successful cooperatives, but they're all killed by the party politics. Some individual initiatives, individuals in the sense non-party initiatives, like in Malkanur, in Karimnagar district, there is a women milk cooperative which is doing extremely well, 360 cooperative. So like this, there are some initiatives again began. But traditionally cooperatives which were there was a lot of government intervention, and then so in late 90s there was a new Cooperative Act which took away cooperative government intervention into these things. And when the government intervention was taken out, there was both positive and negative impacts. In some areas they became very successful because government couldn't step in and then spoil the whole thing. But on the other hand, party politics took over and then government couldn't do anything, and then party politics killed the cooperative. So both ways it happened, and the latest new amendments of the Cooperative Act is highly detrimental. It actually says any cooperative registered under any act can be taken over by the government whenever it finds an excuse to take over. I think that's something which is detrimental. Otherwise, I think cooperatives is the only way forward. So it needs to work with the cooperatives.
So we just have maybe about couple more minutes for the call. So unless somebody has something interesting, maybe I think a good time to have a few closing comments. I think first we should thank Dr. Ramu for staying on the call for so long and very patiently answering all our questions. And so thanks again, Dr. Ramu, for agreeing to participate in this call.